It's a great thing to see that the next level of staff across the world of football may come from something like this. Sam Allardyce, LMA board member and radio and TV pundit. It's very important that the head coach is aware of the business of football. I think that from all aspects, but mainly from his own aspect on his budgeting, how those budgets are going to be spent, where they're going to be spent. I think it's really important on player recruitment, staff recruitment, and of course you making sure you have a contribution and getting it right and communicating between yourselves. Reading accounts is very, very, very important to be a part of your education, so you can look at accounts and particularly look at your own budget accounts and see and have a contribution to where those accounts are being spent, that money's being spent, and you can have your input before a new budget gets released, because often the people who are setting these budgets, which are accountants normally, don't understand why you want it in different areas, so you have to explain to them why you want to move that budget around a little bit. They're just really educated in figures and getting those figures right for the owners, and your input into that can be very important. The pressures in football are obviously one that until you've actually experienced it, you can take a lot of advice how to deal with it or cope with it, but when it actually happens and when that experience comes along, it's actually reassessing when you've come through it and addressing it and saying, you know, what could I do differently, what could I have done differently, and did I manage that situation quite well or didn't I, and make sure that you then learn from that experience. There's obviously a lot of lecturing that goes on about dealing with pressure. There's certainly you could link up with the right sports psychologist that you could communicate with on a basis of how often you think you could or should. They have a massive input if you get a good relationship with a sports psychologist, but the hard bit is finding a good sports psychologist that you would want to work with you and work with your players and your staff going forward. That is not an easy task. They might well be qualified, but they might not be the right person for you. So that is a very, very important decision that you have to make as a young manager going forward. But certainly speaking with somebody of their qualifications and knowledge can help you get through difficult periods or manage difficult periods better, and certainly did with me in my early years, particularly at Bolton when I first got there. There's qualification, that's why they're here. They've already got the qualification. So we now look at the personality and what type of personality have they got to pass on that experiences that they've gained, that education they've gained through their coaching experience and employment, be qualified at university or having some work experience as time goes along. And then listening to them and how they see their way forward and what they think their strengths and weaknesses are. And then that relationship between you and them, is it a good connect? Because if that's a good connect, then you're gonna be comfortable, and then that releases me as the manager or the head coach to do other things, and I don't have to concern myself about that area too much, because your life has to evolve around many, many different things on a daily basis. So if you're comfortable with your coach and you know he's moving in the right direction, then you can delegate to him and he can then expand and become a better coach because of that experience. I think it would be to try and delegate more than I did at that particular time. I think that all young managers, as I were, try to do far, far too much to try and prove ourselves. And I think that looking back, if I had the time all over again, the one big thing I would well point out is to delegate to members of staff and make them heads of department and let them get on with their own department rather than you trying to have a contribution in every single thing that's happening at the football club at that particular time. Any education you've got towards having a career in football is a massive opportunity. I think that it's a great thing to see that the next level of staff across the world of football may come from something like this. Try and get an internship wherever possible, you know, wherever it takes you. Try and get one, because actually getting in and amongst the actual experience itself is invaluable, and then you are selling yourself. Because when you're already there, you're now selling yourself to whoever your boss is, whoever's in charge of your department. And while you might not get a full-time position there and then, you've made enough of impression to go back to university, get yourself fully qualified, and then obviously you send your CV to certain areas, certain football clubs. An opportunity comes along and it reminds him that you were at the club, and you go, oh, I remember such and such a body. I'm going to contact him and get him in and see whether he's the right man for me.